everyone, it's Miss Vandos. We're talking about printing today. So I set down a piece of paper because I don't want to get any of the ink on my table. It'll be a lot trickier to clean up. So I want to have a clean space. I have my inking plate over here. And then I want to, before I get stuff out, I'm going to print this one on this piece of paper. I like this size for it. So I'm going to trace out this piece of paper. And you want to use your practice one when you're tracing this out because it is going to add a line on the paper, on the edge of it. And then line up where you want this printed. You might want to use a ruler to make sure that it is evenly spaced around the edge. Alright, so then that way I know where to put this and then where to place the paper. See how that's looking. Okay, so then I'm going to take my inking plate and this marker. Alright, so I gotta get a new container because the last one, the lid was stuck. Okay, so I'm just going to take a bit of ink out. So this ink goes a pretty long way. You don't want to take way too much out. And then I'm just going to use the spatula to put it on my plate, and then I'm going to use my brayer to get some of the ink on my brayer and then roll it out. So we want to have an even ink, so I'm going to take even more ink than that. So I'm rolling it in different directions to make sure I have a smooth, even coating of the ink here. Okay, once I have that, I am going to put my inking plate in like the inking area, make sure it's not at the same as the printing area, and I'm going to roll it on my plates. And that's why we don't want it in our clean printing area. I'm going to put more ink on my brayer. Alright, once I feel like I've got a good coating on this, I'm going to very carefully move it so it's lined up in that area, and then line up my paper with an edge. And then I'm going to use the back of the spoon, or I could place this in the printing press. We only have the one printing press, so it might save me time to print it this way. So I'm going to make sure I get every edge, and then I'm going to lift this up. Okay, so it printed really lightly, so I would need to add even more ink to it. We want it to be darker, so we want it to show up more like this. So I would need to add even more ink to it. If you're using something where you're repeating it, it would be easier to print it like this and add pressure with your hands and repeat, especially versus using the printing press, because you would have to send it through every single time you wanted it printed. So I would just press it here, ink it, press it again. If you are printing and etching, like this, you could roll it on like this. Or you could use some paper towels. And wipe it. You want to make sure that it goes in the grooves, but it's not on the surface for etching. So see how it's darkened up all of these marks? Now I really focused it here, these ones on the edge. We need some too. And then you need to have paper that's been in water and run this through the printing press. So you need slightly damp water for this one, and then that way the ink will come out of the grooves. Soaked a piece of paper in water, and I have it in between here, in between these pieces of cardboard, and I'm going to place my etching side down, make sure that it's centered and lined up, make sure I have the other cardboard piece on top, and then what I want to see is if this is the right pressure. So I have a pretty thick piece of plexiglass here, so I am going to bring up this roller so that way I can roll this through the printing press, and then I'm going to bring it back. You want to make sure that your plate is not too close to an edge, or it might not print it all the way, or the tray, this metal part going through the printing press may not go through all the way. If it gets stuck, you can just pull it a little bit here, and then let's go ahead and check it out. So I'm going to take my paper carefully, because it was wet, off of my printing plate, and then we can see how it looked. Okay, so I have a couple spots where I would have wanted to clean it up. This wasn't a picture, this was just the practice that we had done. So I can see those lines, but I did have some areas that were outside of that did get printed, especially around the edge. So I would want to clean that up and then do another print. So I would write my name and then one out of however many I end up printing.